Proverbs chapter 23, a study in Proverbs. Do not move an ancient landmark. When you sit down to eat with a ruler, observe carefully what is before you, and put a knife to your throat if you are given to appetite. Do not desire his delicacies, for they are deceptive food. Do not toil to acquire wealth. Be discerning enough to desist. When your eyes light on it, it is gone, for suddenly it sprouts wings, flying like an eagle toward heaven. Do not eat the bread of a stingy man. Do not desire his delicacies, for he is like one who is inwardly calculating. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. You will vomit up the morsels that you have eaten, and waste your pleasant words. Do not speak in the hearing of a fool, for he will despise the good sense of your words. Do not move an ancient landmark, or enter the fields of the fatherless, for their Redeemer is strong. He will plead their cause against you. Apply your heart to instruction, and your ear to words of knowledge. Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you strike him with a rod, he will not die. If you strike him with the rod, you will save his soul from Sheol. My son, if your heart is wise, my heart too will be glad. My inmost being will exult when your lips speak what is right. Let not your heart envy sinners, but continue in the fear of the Lord all the day. Surely there is a future, and your hope will not be cut off. Hear, my son, and be wise, and direct your heart in the way. Be not among the drunkards or among the gluttonous eaters of meat, for the drunkard and the glutton will come to poverty, and slumber will clothe them with rags. Listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy truth, and do not sell it. Buy wisdom and instruction and understanding. The father of the righteous will greatly rejoice. He who fathers a wise son will be glad in him. Let your father and mother be glad. Let her who bore you rejoice. My son, give me your heart, and let your eyes observe my ways. For a prostitute is a deep pit, and adulteress is a narrow well. She lies in wait like a robber and increases the traitors among mankind. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has strife? Who has complaining? Who has wounds without cause? Who has redness of eyes? Those who tarry long over wine, those who go to try mixed wine. Do not look at wine when it is red, when it sparkles in the cup and goes down smoothly. In the end, it bites like a serpent and stings like an adder. Your eyes will see strange things, and your heart utter perverse things. You will be like one who lies down in the midst of the sea, like one who lies on the top of a mast. They struck me, you will say, but I was not hurt. They beat me, but I did not feel it. When shall I awake? I must have another drink. Our proverb of the day is, do not move an ancient landmark, or enter the fields of the fatherless, for their Redeemer is strong, and he will plead their cause against you. It is said that good fences make for good neighbors. It's not only good for the fence industry, but it helps establish boundaries. And boundaries keep the peace when they're observed. At the heart of fences is the idea of boundaries. We can read along in the Old Testament at a pretty good clip until we come to passages like the various laws found in Leviticus and Numbers, or the genealogies in the same books. Consider also the division of the land of Israel around Joshua 15 and following. Why is it we find little interest and have no desire to read line after line and verse after verse describing everything? Maybe it's because we have no stake in such things. After all, we don't follow the law of Moses or depend upon our heritage to make tribal claims. We don't have a deed of property based on a description there. Now, we might feel a little different should that be our land we are living in. One can surmise that property boundaries were quite important in the Old Testament. This is the second reference Solomon has made to this law, having mentioned it in the previous chapter, in verse 28. It is also part of the law of Moses. Hear what was written there in Deuteronomy 19:14. You shall not move your neighbor's landmark, which the men of old have set, in the inheritance that you will hold in the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess. And again in Deuteronomy 27:17, cursed be anyone who moves his neighbor's landmark, and all the people shall say, Amen. There's much more going on than simply being good neighbors. There are at least two aspects of the Ten Commandments that come into play here. The obvious being, thou shalt not steal, Exodus 20 and 15. But also consider Exodus 20 and verse 17. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. The second part of this proverb ties into this concept of theft and coveting. That is the violation of taking the fatherless property. The kinsman redeemer is here brought into the proverb. Read the book of Ruth to see their responsibilities. There were three classes that were particularly vulnerable in the ancient world that God took particular offense to when their rights and lives were violated. That of widows, the alien, and the fatherless. These were the most vulnerable of any society. Do a quick search in your concordance and see how many times these three are found in the same context. There's also a deeper meaning of the landmark here that is often remarked by scholars. It is that of the ancient boundary in God's law. It may seem an easy thing to move the boundaries ever so slightly and think it a small thing. That ancient boundary God set forth in His commandments is there for a reason. How one comes to God in worship. How one comes to God in salvation. How His beloved church, the bride of Christ, is organized. All clearly defined in His inspiration of His Word. To move that ancient boundary is no less a crime than that of shifting a landmark in Israel. Are you observant of the boundaries from days of old? Lord willing, we'll meet again tomorrow.